Hi guys, and welcome back to Tommy's Starcraft. This is your host Tommy with another Starcraft Remastered replay for you guys. And once again a great matchup here in between those two pros from the South Korea, of course. Let me just start by introducing the players to you guys. In the left part of the map in the red it is BISU, of course. One of the best Protoss, if not the best Protoss in the period of 2010-2015. And his opponent is going to be none other here in the right part of the map as the brown Terran. It's Fantasy, of course, from the very known SK Telecom clan. So really nice gameplay here, but all of a sudden look at that. A very early SCV here for Fantasy, very out of the ordinary gameplay here by him. At the same time BISU also moves out with one of his probes, probably going to place a pylon here, but Fantasy already attacking here these probes, so not allowing a pylon placement here. Really aggressive gameplay here by Fantasy. So let's just see the follow-up here. What exactly is the plan from Fantasy? Of course the map allows this, as Fantasy knew where exactly BISU is and even killing that probe, so a small victory here for Fantasy at the beginning of the game. Very aggressive SCV move out here. BISU didn't expect that. He did open pretty standard with the pylon here in his main. And SCV already here scouting this position here from BISU, sees everything he does. At the same time he's only placing now his first supply depot. But then again this SCV might also go for some hidden barracks tactics, so really out of the ordinary gameplay here by Fantasy, showing his aggression very early on in the game. Let's just have a look at the follow-up here. Apparently this SCV is going to build a barracks here, really nicely placed, as he's going to block this entrance here. And at the same time SCV even stealing some mirrors here and just wants to know exactly what BISU is up to. First gateway is about to finish, gas is also about to finish here for BISU. BISU at the same time not placing any pylons here, he just goes straight for the base of Fantasy. Just wishes also to know exactly what Fantasy is up to. So quite out of the ordinary gameplay here. This must be probably a cybernetic score here, of course, for BISU, as Dragoons are very strong against Marines in the beginning of the game. And that's exactly why most Terrans just build only 1 or 2 Marines and then go straight into mechs, straight into vultures, tanks, and of course Goliaths to have some anti-air. BISU comes in just to be as annoying as possible, of course. He is being surrounded by those SCV, so he needs to be very careful here. One Marine is also going to pop out, so he has to of course micro his pro back. At the same time Fantasy also bringing his SCV home, as he knows that BISU is on a very standard opening now with 2 gateways on that cybernetic score. Still no zealots here for BISU, as he probably very likely will go straight into Dragoons. So finally things are settling down. The follow-up here from Fantasy is probably very likely going to be a factory indeed, with a supply depot once again, and we have Fantasy at 16 workers versus the 15 from BISU. BISU at the beginning of the game, sadly for him, he did lose of course a probe. And first Dragoons are coming out on the map, so perhaps BISU is going to secure his expansion here, or even might move out here with those Dragoons. Dragoons of course very good at the beginning of the game, as there is no bunker here for Fantasy. There's just a wall in here for him. But of course as soon as the tanks will move out with those siege tank capability, they are very good against those Dragoons. BISU already moving out on the map, even placing a nice pylon here just to detect some dropships. First Dragoon is out. Remember there is no bunker here, so this one Marine might take some damage here. He even might get taken out. No. Nice micro here by Fantasy as he goes straight for that factory. At the same time Fantasy also building his expansion here. Of course Terrans can lift up their expansion and just float over the map into this location. I also see 2 other Dragoons here moving out here on the map for BISU. So BISU of course is going to try to be as aggressive as possible against the Terran after suffering at the beginning of the game. First tank is almost out. Siege capability also being researched, as BISU needs to back up a little bit, but he shows his presence here on the map as he secures here the expansion from the Terran. He even finds a nice position here at a high ground, so even doing more and more damage towards that factory. This factory could even fall here, so Fantasy has to pull of course some SCVs just to repair it. So But then again, as soon as the siege tank capability is going to be finished, He's going to fend this attack off, however, already taking so much damage here against this factory, and those SCVs are also being targeted. So Fantasy needs of course to be careful, but now Siege Tank is being finished and BISU needs of course to pull back his forces here. However, reinforcements are coming. There's already 5 Dragoons here for BISU. At the same time, BISU also expanding here at this location. Nice spread here from Fantasy with these tanks. Really good job here for him. BISU decides to retreat, completely retreat, so it's going to allow an expansion here for Fantasy. So after an early aggression, things are finally settling down. BISU is expanding. He's nicely placing his pylons here on the map, as of course on this map you might expect a dropship gameplay here by the Terran. Let's just have a look at the follow-up here. There is of course a robotics facility bay, just in order to perhaps he will go into some shuttle play with some reavers, with some psionic storm. But at the same time you need those observers against those Terrans who are building vultures of course. So the observatory will very likely follow here for BISU just in order to detect those mines, as I'm pretty sure that indeed the Terran will go for some vultures. So once again a mech play here for the Terran against the Protoss. Of course later in the game BISU might change his mind and he will transition into some carriers, perhaps an arbiter play. Until now there's just an observatory of course. But then again he could also just go for mass gateways with zealots, with dragoons, and some shuttle gameplay with some reavers, so everything is possible. As I'm pretty sure that the Terran will very likely stay into his mass factory gameplay here, like most Terrans do. So things, like I told you guys, are finally settling down. BISU even decides to expand at this position here, secures it with 2 dragoons and a pylon wall here, so really nice gameplay here by him. Fantasy tries to get some map recognition here, just leaves his vultures in the middle of the map just to see when an army move out is going to come here by BISU. So pretty good stuff here by him. At the same time he has of course scan. No, he doesn't have scan, so that's pretty odd. He could of course scan the main from BISU just to know exactly what is going on, but he actually decides here to expand at the upper right part of the map. So both players pretty balanced, pretty same build orders here. And another supply depot is being built here, and of course the Fantasy sends some troops here to secure this expansion. Slowly but steadily he's moving out of the map. Notice that he's also placing turrets. These turrets of course very good for him, as they are also detectors against Dark Templars. Dark Templars of course invisible, so he's reckoning with an attack from BISU by those Dark Templars, but he will have vision of course, he will have detection against that. BISU also placing more and more gateways. Still leaves his Dragoon in the back just to secure his bases, his expansions. Same can be said here for Fantasy, so we are turning slowly but steadily in a very defensive gameplay here by both players. Both players are walling in their expansions. A nice observer here by BISU, he knows exactly what Fantasy is up to. Sees that factory. Strangely enough only one factory, perhaps the other have been floated here up. No. And that is really strange here that I see only one factory. Finally the second factory is being placed here by Fantasy. So Fantasy orientating first into expanding and then into building more and more production buildings. Also starport is being placed. Of course you might want to go for some science vessel against the Protoss with that EMP shockwave. Very good against the shield, and of course you need that detection against observers. And perhaps High Templars later on. Let's just have a look. Did BISU do some upgrades? Still 0-0 upgrades. We finally have a shuttle out. No Reaver yet. He's just going straight for 4 Zealots. He might do a drop or 2 on those siege tanks of course. A good position here for him to do a drop, for example. This is a little bit risky. At the same time he's moving out with Dragoons, with those observers, just to see those mines. He kills a vulture and slowly but steadily is moving out. So let's just see the follow-up here. In comes the attack from BISU. BISU already taking lots of splash damage, but he's going straight for that one siege tank. Zealots are in the front just to soak up those mines. Good engagement here for BISU. He's of course going to lose some Zealots, but at the same time he clears this force from Fantasy. He keeps moving out, kills that SCV, is going for that supply depot, but now changes his mind as he's going for those other tanks. So a lot really nice gameplay here for him. Of course, this will be hold off here by Fantasy, and slowly but steadily BISU has to retreat, but a nice first engagement here for him. And at the same time, no, this is just an observer here. He did some damage, of course. A fair trade between those two players. 3 siege tanks, a turret has been killed, those zealots have fallen, and 2 or 3 dragoons have fallen as well. So just a nice engagement here for BISU, showing his first aggression, as he just leaves his dragoons in the middle of the map just to have as much map control as possible. Let's just have a look at his main, or is he going into other buildings? Of course, a Citadel of Adun is being done just to upgrade those zealots' legs, and a Stargate. Well, hold on, another Stargate. And look at this, a very nice hidden base here of Stargates here for BISU. Even took me by surprise. So he is of course indeed going to transition into carriers pretty soon. Carriers of course very good against Terran, but Terrans have a great counter against carriers. It's of course Goliaths, so pretty balanced game here by these two. I still don't know who's going to win it, as we have passed of course the 10-minute mark. But this base here is really nicely hidden here for BISU, as he's going once again into carriers. So BISU really, I've seen this on previous replay on this channel, he's going straight for carriers. Sometimes he goes for arbiters of course, but this time he has chosen once again carriers. So vultures once again are moving out on the map, just placing as many mines as possible, trying to get that connection against those dragoons, but of course the observer will spot this, as BISU is moving out here on the map. Just try to kill as much as possible. Also at the same time he's checking for the expansion of Fantasy. Needs to bring his observer here, as he is a little bit of trapped here. Even places a pylon here. At the same time some vultures are coming in, so BISU needs to be careful. 1 zealot or 2 will fall here. The second zealot has fallen, so of course the third one is being targeted. So really nice drive through here by Fantasy, dealing so much damage, taking BISU a little bit by surprise. Kills even more and more. BISU needs to be careful, places some mines, so a lot of splash damage here. Nice tactic here by Fantasy, really dealing so much damage here with these vultures. As once again BISU brings his observer here, and this attack is finally being held off. But he did lose quite a lot of units, 3 zealots and this 1 dragoon, and of course this dragoon taking so much splash damage here. At the same time, a very nicely hidden expansion here for BISU, a little bit of risky of course, as Fantasy is not going to allow this. He's going to come in with his fast vultures and kill these pylons of course, and just to fend off here BISU. Some zealots are being dropped here, really nice gameplay here by him, but at the same time he's moving out with his dragoons just to fend this off. So Fantasy has to pull off. Let's just have a look where exactly those first carriers are. Here they are indeed, 3 Stargates now. So really great macro orientated. BISU once again hiding those carriers. Is Fantasy finally going to transition into Goliaths? Indeed he is. Let's have a look at the upgrades. Just a second, it's 1-1 upgrades of course, but he really needs more Goliaths. It's just 1 Goliaths now on the map. But he has so many factories, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 factories, almost 10 factories here for him. BISU once again out on the map, secures here his probe, move out on the map. A very risky expansion here for him, but I'm sure he knows exactly what he's doing. Fantasy moves out on the map, so many vultures, so many siege tanks, but I don't see that many Goliaths, so this probably has been gone undetected here for Fantasy. Fantasy moves out, dragoons against vultures, dragoons very good. Zealots also in the front against those siege tanks. Finally here they are. Zealots of course will fall, as BISU has to retreat now. But what Fantasy doesn't know is the fact that BISU has gone into carriers, so he thinks he has an advantage. Of course he's moving out on the map, but still he does not have that much anti-air. I only see 3 Goliaths here. Fantasy securing his position in the middle of the map, also placing mines all over this position here. Let's just have a look at his factories. Is he going into Goliaths? No, he's still going for vultures, so he still has no idea what's going on. And now finally he sees those carriers. There's already 4 carriers out on the map and he needs to retreat. Those 2 Goliaths have been taken out, and slowly but steadily, what a surprise here for Fantasy. He was not reckoning with this. He's going to lose so many units here. One vulture dies after the other. BISU still going for those tanks, of course. Very important for him to kill as many tanks as possible, but the economy of fantasy is still very strong. He's at 1200 minerals. However, so much damage is being dealt here by BISU with those carriers. They're being backed up pretty soon by dragoons and zealots in the back. Lots of units are falling here. Of course, fantasy is going to build now as many Goliaths as possible. Here they are, but the carriers are nicely hidden here on this upper ledge. Now Goliaths are indeed here, but BISU is moving out already with his dragoons and with his zealots in this expansion position. His carriers are falling back. Now finally they try to get a flank here. The siege tank will of course fall, and fantasy in a lot of trouble, but at the same time fantasy did a nice drop here with those vultures denying that mining here for BISU. BISU however in a very strong position. Look how he protects his carriers here on this map. Also build some carriers here. Some drive-through has been done here by fantasy. Drive-by with his vultures killing so many workers against BISU. BISU had 35 workers versus 53 for fantasy, so fantasy still could hold this, but in comes his reinforcements. Goliaths from the back, siege tank in the lower part. Those carriers are really much needed now here into this position. In comes the carriers, and he really needs to protect those carriers and just to kill them with those dragoons. BISU in a little bit of trouble here. He might lose so many dragoons here against those siege tanks. Nice microing those carriers back and forward. Now the dragoons are going for those Goliaths, but there's not that much being left here for BISU as more and more reinforcements are coming in here for fantasy. So of course BISU has to pull back a little bit. He did a nice damage here against this expansion, denying this mining time, and even perhaps he's going to kill this expansion. His reinforcements are over out on the map, and he's even going to kill this expansion here for fantasy. BISU however only at 36 workers. Those vultures really did a nice job here against his economy. And let's just have a look. The follow-up here is going to be, is he going to trap these units? Of course the zealots and the dragoons will have to take care of those. There are some Goliaths here to back up these siege tanks. BISU has to be careful, he might lose a carrier here. Really great kiting here back and forward. His zealots and his dragoons are still waiting in the back. Once again he's feeling confident, he's moving out. Zealots in the front, siege tanks have been they've been unsieged and they're retreat, so a really good engagement here for BISU. Those siege tanks are not sieged up, so Goliaths of course are trying to deal as much damage against those interceptors, but BISU defending those carriers really well. So a little bit of mistakes here by fantasy. He did unsiege, and what a great timing attack here for BISU. He's going straight for one tank and the other with those carriers. Dragoons of course are killing those Goliaths. Even the carriers now are going for the Goliaths, so fantasy in a lot of trouble. What a mistake here by him, as he unsieged exactly when BISU was moving forward here with his army. He's in some serious trouble. Lots of SCV will fall here, and the position is really great here for BISU as his reinforcements are arriving here, and those SCVs will fall sadly for him one after the other. Really great engagement here, lucky engagement here by BISU as he's able to kill this expansion. At fantasy all of a sudden only at 17 workers. Can he somehow come back with some Goliaths? So what a great engagement here by BISU. Not that much is being left. His carriers are nicely hidden at the higher ground here on this ledge. And yes, indeed, that is of course the GG. So great timing push here by BISU. Very lucky for him. Those siege tanks have been unsieging exactly when he moved in. And BISU of course punishing here fantasy for that mistake. Really nicely done here by him. So really great game here by both players, as BISU in the end is of course the victor. I hope you guys enjoyed this game. I see you guys in the next replay. Thanks for watching.